right, guys. Well, it's a minute past, so we'll go ahead and start and get through our house cleaning. I have set all of you, or most of you, to be able to talk. So feel free to unmute as we go along and ask questions. We want this to be interactive. I do have some polls to push out at some points during our training and just find out, get some feedback from y'all. So today, let's talk about some house cleaning, housekeeping. So hopefully you found the chat. Feel free to, I've got the chat open, I've got the questions open. If you just want to say hi or answer something that I've said, feel free to either come off mute or throw it in the chat. If you have specific questions, especially things that maybe we need to go track down the answers for, that would be great to put in our Q&A section, as that will allow us to follow up with you a little bit better. So we do have closed captions available. We do have a diverse group of users. We are expecting that many of you on this call are what we would consider our end users, people who don't have admin rights to Martus, but are needing to go in and do budgeting. So if that's you, you are in the right place. That is exactly what we're going to be walking through today. And we will send out this PowerPoint and training either tomorrow or Thursday, usually at the latest. So definitely look for that in your email. It will also be on our knowledge base in the webinar section, and I'll show you where that is towards the end of our training. All right, so let's go. Let's talk about where we're going. So we're going to talk through the budget worksheet, which is where you do the majority of your budgeting in Martus. Then we'll talk a little bit about special purpose worksheets. Then we'll talk through our budget reporting and just general reporting throughout the year. So now we have our Let's Go screen. So let me hop into Martus here. Alrighty. So the user we're being today is Kenneth King. And as we think about budgeting and managing a budget in Martus, we are always going to be in planner section that you see there. So, okay, so we are going to go into our planner section and go to our worksheets. So whenever you're thinking about doing the actual work of budgeting, you're always going to go to planner worksheets. Now you'll see Kenneth is the overseer of our youth center. So you can see here, he is the overseer of two different corporations, which may be locations in your system or another name for kind of a high level grouping. And then you can see we have two different youth centers at those different corporations. So when you come into this screen, it may look a little bit different, and you may have a little bit of a different labels across the top here, but you should see whichever worksheets you have been given access to. So we are going to go ahead and jump into our worksheet. Now this worksheet, I'm going to click on the edit button to get there. And now we are in our actual budget worksheet. So I know this is a lot of information, and yours may look a little bit different. Yours, when you jump in, you may have something that looks a little bit more like worksheets here. It may look more like this without any lines in it. And you can see here that we would need to take some actions here, and we'll talk through how to fill out a worksheet like this in just a little bit. So I'm going to go back to my worksheets, and we're going to go back into our youth center worksheet. Now I happen to oversee both income and expense accounts. You may only have an expense section in your budget. That's okay. You may have more sections in your budget, and that's totally okay too. So either way, you will have the ability to see all of the lines in your budget. So a line in a budget is this account number right here. These are probably things that you're somewhat used to. Obviously, mine are going to look a little different than yours. And then depending on how your Martus instance is set up, you may or may not see what we call a line dimension here. So if you think about your worksheet as a whole as a tab in your Excel document, you can then think of each one of these rows as rows in that Excel document as well. And then sometimes you have a project or a grant, so that maybe you have a special event coming up or a grant that's happening that you want to put some of that money for utilities to go against. We can do that here. All that to say, when you get into your worksheet, it may be blank like we just saw, or there are going to be lines just like this. And our job as the budget owner is to fill out our budget worksheet. Now, we have a couple ways to do that. Our preferred and best practice way, and the way I find the easiest, is to use our budget widget. So I'm going to come into our utilities line, and I'm going to click on the budget widget, and I'm going to show you some of our most common budget widget adjustment types. So see how it says adjustment type here? And if you ever want to know what all those adjustment types mean, you can always click on the little question mark there and it will tell you exactly what each one does. So I'm going to go ahead and do a monthly amount here. So you can see most months we spend about $15,000 to $17,000. So I'm going to go ahead and increase that a little bit and we'll just do $18,000 a month. I'm going to hit preview. You can see we're pretty close to that 208 total. So we're going to spend a little bit more money this year and do $216,000 on utilities. And I'm going to go ahead and click on save. Now we can see that that line, this utilities line, has been updated with those numbers. Now we have a couple other fun ways to budget here with our budget widget. So I'm going to go ahead and go into our janitorial services here because I can also budget an annual amount. So you can see our annual amount right now is dollars. Let's just ask Martus to make that in 45,000, excuse me, across all of our months. So I'm going to use the annual adjustment type and put my 45,000 in and hit preview. And you can see now we have the $3,750. And one of the things I like to do here, and I recommend, is add a note so you know, one, I've touched the line, because you'll see in a minute when you add a note, the line will turn blue for you, or the budget widget icon will turn blue. But it's also a good way to kind of remember what you did, how you got to the number you did. So we're just going to say that this is 45,000 annually. And if we want to copy that note down to all of the cells, we can click on this copy down arrow, and that will copy that down. I could also remove that and change that, but we'll leave it copied down. And then when I hit save, not only is my line going to be updated to my 45,000, but you'll see I have that blue, my budget widget icon has turned blue. That's a really easy indication that our budgeting has happened and that we are ready to go and have touched that line. So I know a lot of our budgeters will go ahead and add notes to different things so that they know they've touched that line and they're good with it. It's also great later on when you're trying to remember what you budgeted. If you actually give your rationale in there, it's a lot easier when you're trying to reconcile things and go like, why did I budget that? And if you've actually put a helpful note in there, then you'll be able to see that and remember what you were planning to do. All right, so let's go into our program. Well, we'll go into this line, our office supplies line here. So we have a couple other options here that a lot of us will want to use. And one of those is our copy existing values. So this will take whatever's in the line, so the dollars that are currently there, or rather it will take what our reference data is. So we can look at our previous year's actuals and budget, or we could look at last year's actual amounts or the budget amounts, and we can increase those by a certain percentage. So 105 will be 5% increase. If we wanted to decrease by 5%, we could do 95. And so I will just say decreased by 5%, and I will copy that down and hit save. And then we have that there. Now it is important as you're using the budget widget and managing your lines that you do always hit preview and save. Otherwise, Martus will not save your changes, and then you'll be very sad because you'll have done a lot of work and not saved it. Another one of my favorite options is our allocation. So again, with the allocation, we can use our actuals and budget if we want. And what this does is, see how I'm very close? I'm at 56,447. Let's say I want to spend 60,000 next year. What this does is it's going to take whatever 4,166.67%, whatever percentage that is of 56,000 here, it's going to take that same percentage and apply it to our monthly amount there. And so essentially what this is doing is it's breaking each month that you have listed here into a piece of pie. And then you're controlling by putting a different amount in here, whether or not that pie is bigger or smaller, but everybody's going to get the same portion of the pie. So all 12 months are going to still be weighted the same way, but you can control the total amount that you're budgeting on that line. Now, it is also very possible to just come in. For example, maybe I want to add an extra $1,000 this month. I'm going to change that to a 5. Of course, now we're at 61,000. But I can edit using any of my adjustment types. I can edit any month I want. So this is an allocation from last year to 60,000. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy this down, but then here on this line that we added the extra amount to, I'm going to say added additional 1,000 for reasons. Okay. And that way I have that on that note. So now I can hit save and that's going to be added to my list there. Now, Martus is trying to make budgeting as easy as possible for you. So we have a couple ways that you can manage and see what your previous spending or actuals look like in your budget. So one of the ways you can see that is by clicking on the drop down arrow next to any of your lines, and you're going to see your 2023 actuals and budget. So you can see we're in March right now, so I'm seeing through March, and I'm seeing my budget for the rest of the year. And then we have our actuals for the whole 12 months there. We have our budget, and we have our 12-month trailing. Now, normally we wouldn't necessarily see 23 actuals for the whole year, but we're doing this a little bit in retrospective. But we can see all of that. And one of the nice things here is that let's say you want to just use your 2023 budget numbers. As you're looking at your data here, if you click on the budget widget next to that row, Martus is going to assume you want to copy the existing values. It's going to choose the budget for all your months and allow you to add your note. And we'll copy down our note and hit save. All right. So the other thing we can do here is we can show what we call our reference data. So this checkbox and this dropdown work together, and that is what's controlling what data you're seeing here. So now once I've clicked that checkbox, you'll notice we now have 4 sections in our budget. We have our previous year's actuals through our last close month and our budget for the remainder of the year, and that is visible in our budget worksheet. Now we can also view any of our other data sets here if we want to, like our 12-month trailing actuals. We can also filter to any of our accounts or to our project and be able to see just those things. So that's really helpful if you're using projects for multiple account lines, just to see that. If we ever want to take off our filters or we accidentally clicked on one of the names of our accounts or our line dimensions, we can click on clear filters here. And now we're going to see everything within this worksheet. I'm going to go ahead and hide that data because it's just a lot of extra data in there. All right, so that's some of the things that we can do and manage from our budget widget. It is possible to simply click on the line and update an amount. And that's totally a valid way to update things in Martus. Just be aware if you do that, unlike Excel, when you tab out and just go to another row and your amount stays in Martus, that amount will not stay and stay updated the way you want unless you come over and you click on the save button all the way to the right. Now, depending on your screen size too, you may not see the full save button. And so it's really easy to forget to save. And then you'll notice I typed in 6,000 here. But if I click anywhere else in my spreadsheet, it's going to go back to what it was before. So if you are wanting to make a little one-off change on the row, you can. Just make sure that you actually click the save button here. The other thing you can't do with editing the rows like this is you can't add a note. You can only add the notes via the budget widget here. So it is helpful if you're trying to make sure that you've touched every line to add that note so your budget widget turns blue. Now, depending on how your accounting team has set up your Martus instance and your budget, they may or may not ask you to add lines that are missing. I find that most organizations that have a project or grant, a lot of times you'll end up adding lines. And so if that's you or you're not sure, definitely talk to your finance team. We can't add lines. So if we go to line actions, we can add a line. Martus allows us to choose both the account and so we can add our program supplies here, and then we can add whatever project we need to here. And I can add that line. Now the line is going to be added blank. So now I can add a monthly amount or a weekly amount. The weekly is sometimes fun. So I can do $400. We'll do $100 a week. And notice because it's weekly, there are some months that have 5 rather than 400, and those are the months because we started it on a Sunday that have 5 Sundays. If I start this on a Thursday though, you'll see our $500 moves because though there's different months with 5 Thursdays as opposed to 5 Fridays. So we can just do $400 a week, and we'll copy our note down and hit save. So now we've added a line. There are some other line actions that you do want to be aware of and be careful with. We don't have an undo button in Martus, so if you do one of these actions and need to fix it, you have to fix it back manually. And so we can do things like round our line and choose the rounding level of ones. Again, this is not really something that you can undo. So rounding to the nearest ones is probably fine. For a lot of us, rounding to like the nearest 1,000 is probably not fine. You want to make sure that you are updating appropriately there. The other thing that you have the ability to do from here is to delete lines. So sometimes that can be really helpful if you're not going to use that line anymore. You don't need to spend money in there, but you do want to be careful again, because the only way to get that line back is to re-add it either through add line or through one of our worksheet actions, which we'll talk about in a minute. The other thing you can do on the worksheet line is initialize one or more lines at the same time. So whereas the budget widget here is one at a time, you can come in and click on Initialize and choose to use either your actual numbers or your budgeted numbers, depending on how you want, or a combination of both, and increase those numbers by 5% by doing 105 and set the option there. So those two were successfully initialized and they have been filled out by Martus without really a whole lot of work on my end. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hop back over to our other worksheet where we don't have any lines. So I'm going to go back to worksheets. And remember, just like our rows are rows on a page, like a tab in Excel, you can think of each one of these worksheets as its own tab in Excel. So we'll talk about reporting in a little while, where we can see all of the data from both worksheets together. Whenever we're doing the budgeting, we're going to be looking at one worksheet at a time. So I'm going to come into our other worksheet here and notice that there is no budget for this worksheet yet. But I want to see our 2023 budget, and you can see that we have a line in that budget. So I'm going to come up to our worksheet actions here, and whatever is in my reference data at the top, if I click on load, Martus is going to add that line for me. So we're only working with one line in this example just to keep it simple. And now I can come up to my worksheet actions, and if I want, I can initialize the whole worksheet so that we are using our 2023 budget numbers. And we can increase that by 5%. And now my budget is ready to go and set up like I expect. So that's load and initialize. If you get that message on your worksheet that says, hey, there's nothing here, no worries. You want to go to worksheet actions, click load, and then optionally initialize. Coming back to our worksheets, I want to show you a couple fun things that we can do within our worksheet. So one of the things that is often very helpful for your approval, especially if you have approvers in your organization, or even if you want to just remember what you're doing, and that is to add attachments to your worksheet. So each worksheet can have one or more attachments, and these can be things like additional information, maybe an Excel spreadsheet you've been working on. Essentially, any PDF, Excel, Word type doc can be added here. You can add as many as you want. So maybe you need to make a larger purchase this year and you've done some research on what that's going to cost. You can add that here. And then we recommend that you also put a note in your worksheet that says, hey, look at this attachment. And that'll be a good clue for your approver to come over and look at your attachments here. So the other thing I want to show you is something we call special purpose worksheets. Special purpose worksheets allow us to add additional detail to our worksheet. For example, I used to run a day camp. It was 9 weeks. I had 14 staff. We had 120 kids a week from 7 to 6 every day. And I had 2 lines in our budget, one for personnel and one for program supplies. And that was it. But my program supplies involved buses and amusement park tickets and all sorts of different things that I was trying to break down and budget for and figure out what I had left for other miscellaneous items. And so it would have been really nice to add more lines to the budget, but our finance team obviously didn't want to add, lines for Disneyland tickets and Knott's Berry Farm tickets. So this is where a special purpose worksheet would have been very, very helpful. So I'm going to come into Worksheet Actions and click on Create Special Purpose Worksheet. That's going to allow me to create a special purpose associated with this worksheet. So every worksheet in the budget can have one special purpose worksheet writing to it. And so I'm going to click on this Create Special Purpose Worksheet. Again, this is an optional feature of Martus, but I do like to show it to you because it can be really powerful. So we're just going to use the option of adding some detail to our lines. And so I'm going to go ahead and add a line here, and I'm just going to use our other budgeted items. I can make my own section simply by typing in here. Like we could do software, and I can call this Microsoft subscription, and we'll post this out to our budget worksheet, and we'll do, that's not the right account though. Let's see, where was that? License fees, that's what I was looking for. And we'll set that to our generic line dimension. Then I can come over here and tell Martus that, we're going to spend $500 a month on Microsoft, and we'll put Microsoft in our notes here and copy that down and click on save. Now I can add a line, and it will be very similar. We're going to add it to our software here. We're going to call this Adobe. We'll post this to our budget worksheet, and we'll do our same account and our same line dimension. And we'll say we're spending $700 a month on Adobe. Oops, I forgot to put Adobe in there. So let's go back up and change that. And we'll copy that down. Awesome. All right, so now you can see that while we have listed out what we're spending our different dollars on, Martus is rolling all of that up into our one line. So this can be really helpful. I've had a lot of people say, hey, I budget, or our IT department or other departments, they have to budget for a lot of things in one line. And then when they're over budget, a lot of times it's like, okay, well, which option did I miss? Or what things, do I need to add to the budget again, and all of that. And we have a question. So that's a great question. So somebody just asked, can other departments and other users use the same special purpose worksheet once it's set up? And the answer to that question is a little bit nuanced. So as a regular user of Martus, meaning you don't have admin privileges, you will only have the ability to see your own special purpose worksheet that's connected directly to your worksheet. However, your finance department does have the ability to create something called a template special purpose worksheet. And if they've done that, you'll have an extra drop down here at the bottom where you can import those lines. So a lot of our organizations have templates for like travel or retreats or conferences, things like that, where maybe everybody should be budgeting across the board in the same way. If we're going to a conference, we're going to need to spend money on flights and hotel rooms and rental cars and per diems or food. And so a lot of our organizations have set those up for the end users, for you guys. And what's nice about those is once you add them, you usually can just pop in how many nights you're going to be gone and how many people are going, and Martus will do all the math for you. So definitely something to talk about with your finance team if that's something you think would help the whole organization. So, because the other thing special purpose worksheets can do, whether that's a worksheet specific one like this, meaning it's directly tied, or it's a template, or we also have one that your finance team can use, which is called a global special purpose worksheet, and that can post to any worksheet across the organization. But what all of these can do is that we can actually do math inside them. So we can take amounts from one line and, multiply the travelers times the airfare and get that amount and post that out to our budget. So these can be really powerful. We're just kind of scratching the surface here. But definitely, if you want to know more, reach out to your finance team. And if you are the finance team and want to reach out and want to know more, definitely reach out to our support team so that we can help you with that, because it's a very cool feature of Martus. Now, one of the things to be aware of is that as we're working in here, nothing is happening in our worksheet. So we have line 5713999, and if I go over to my worksheet here, we can see we don't even see license fees here, but it is not the same amount. So we currently have 26,391 in our budget here, and I've only got 14,000 here because I haven't probably added all the lines I need. Now, as I finish over here, though, I do want to click on this button. What this is going to do is it's going to override any lines we see here with what's in there. So once I hit post to worksheet, which we're going to do, and I jump back into my worksheet by clicking on the worksheet button, you'll notice that at the bottom, we now have 14,000. You'll notice that I don't have a checkbox and my budget widget has turned into a box with an arrow coming out of it. That means that it's a special purpose worksheet that is controlling it, and I can't directly edit it like I can all of my other lines. But what Martus does allow me to do is jump over to that special purpose worksheet and update that line there. So that is one of the lines that isn't edited directly because now we're controlling it by that special purpose worksheet. All right. I'm going to throw another poll up there. As we move on to submitting our worksheet and looking at our reports here. So we can come in, and when we are done budgeting, and being done is important because once you push this button, you won't be able to make any changes unless one of your finance team unlocks your worksheet for you. So once you're done with your budget, you're going to want to submit or unlock your worksheet. And you can do that one of two ways. You can go to Worksheet Actions and click on Submit and Lock, or clicking on this lock here does the same thing. You can see if I hover over it, we also get the Submit and Lock. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And now when I come out, you'll notice that we have nothing is editable now, and I can't unlock. Well, I guess I have the ability. Most of you will not have the ability to unlock a worksheet. If you do, you could technically unlock it. But now that it's locked, it's essentially going through our approval process. So if I come over to my approvals tab, you can see it's awaiting Pam and Sabrina. They both just got emails from Martus. And when I come over to my worksheets here, you can see that that worksheet is now waiting for approval. And I can see exactly who it's waiting on. Once one of these ladies has approved the worksheet, this status will say partially approved, and there will be an A after the person who approved it. If it's denied, same thing, it will say denied, and there will be a D after the name of the person who denied it. Once it's fully approved, it will say fully approved in my status. Kind of a fun fact of Martus is that this approval process is really just informational. It doesn't affect how Martus reports on our worksheets. So we're going to see in a moment, we're going to jump over to our reporting for our budget, and we're going to see how both of those are shown in our reports, regardless of their status or whether or not they're locked. All right, and it looks like we've got a pretty equal split between numbers 2 and a 10. A lot of, I would say that the majority of us are on the 6 and up side, so that's exciting. I'm glad you guys are seeing the special purpose worksheets there and that they can be kind of fun and useful. All right. So especially if I only have one worksheet, it's pretty easy to go into my worksheet and just kind of see my budget. But if you're managing multiple departments or you're managing maybe multiple budget owners and you're trying to kind of see everything all at once, what you're going to want to do is when you think about, I want to see their budgets, I'm reviewing budgets, I want to see what's going on what they budgeted, your best option is to come into Planner Summary. So when you're on Planner Summary, you want to think budget reporting. All right, they're synonymous. So on my Planner Summary, right now I have my rows set to account view. That means that I'm going to see all of the accounts across both worksheets summarized here all together. Now I can change that. So for example, we have the corporation view summary. I'm going to click on load, and now we can see we have the two different areas. And what I can do from here is if I still want to see those account codes underneath the two Excel spreadsheets, I'm going to click on our expand button here. So expand is going to show me the parent-child relationships. So you can see here's my general. This is the words we were seeing before of my actual worksheet, but it's rolling up to my parent test parent there. And then you can see down here, but you can see every single account and how that's listed out. So it makes it really easy to review the budgets that you're overseeing all in one screen. And just like all of our other reports in Martus, this can be exported as either a PDF or an Excel document so that you can print it and review it on paper if that's how you like to work. Coming back over to my budget summary here, I do want to show you that down here there's a key button. I call it the secret button, but this allows you to create a subtotal. So we'll go ahead and subtotal it by corporation and get what we call our detailed budget analysis report. Now, this report is very helpful because this is the report that will include the notes that you've put into your budget. So I know a lot of times managers will want to come in here and be able to just kind of review everything all together at the same time. That's totally doable if you remember that this little report down here at the bottom of your screen exists. So we can see here that we have our 100 general here and our subtotal for that, for the income. And then down here for our expense, we have our 100 general and a subtotal. And because we just have the one line for the Colson initiative, we just have that. But then it's giving us our totals as well for each one of those different months. And if I scroll all the way over here to the right, you can see we're seeing all of our notes in the lines that we've added them to. So it's really easy to pull that out and print it. Now, one of the things to be aware of is that whenever you are in the planner summary section here, if you export anything from here, while it's great for printing, none of the reports from here are re-importable into Martus. So if you're trying to do something in Excel and then import that back into Martus to update your budget worksheet, while that is possible, you do need to go in, do that from some place where your admins have ability to do that, or from the worksheet itself. So we want to just make sure every once in a while we get somebody who pulls down one of these reports and makes changes and wants to import it. And unfortunately, none of these reports are in an importable format. So if you do need to do that, talk to your Martus admin, your finance team, and they will be able to get you the right format so that that's possible. All right, I do want to show you one other report in here, and this is the planner summary by worksheet in Excel. This is another export, so we're going to go ahead and export this just to PDF. But what this does is it's going to give you a summary of all of the worksheets that you have access to. So this is my summary with everything, all the corporations and departments. Now, while it says all, it's really just the ones that I have access to. So I don't have access to my whole organization's worksheets. In this system, there's about 20 different worksheets. I only have access to 2. So I'm only seeing those 2. But here on page 2, we have our 100 general 110 youth center budget that I can print out. And then on page 3 here, I have our 201 budget worksheet that I can print out. So this is just an easy way to be able to manage that. All right, so now what we're going to do is we have finished budgeting and now we're at the point where we are ready to start spending against that budget. And we want to keep an eye on our spending. That's an important aspect of this. So whenever you log into Martus, you're going to be here on your welcome screen, and you can easily jump in to your budget versus actual reporting by clicking on this here button. Now I have my system set up to take me to the forecast, and I will show you how to do that in just a moment. Your system may be set up to take you somewhere else. And if nobody's had set something on it, you may be landing here on our dashboard. Now, one of the reports that I really like and my favorite report is the forecast report. So you can see that we're seeing data from March. We're going to pretend like we're back in 2023, and we're seeing the budget for the rest of the year here. So this report, as your finance team enters the data from all the different transactions that come in and go out from the organization that you work for, those transactions will make up these blue numbers here. And as a user, when I click on one of these numbers, the blue numbers, I can actually go over and see the actual transactions that make that up. So whenever you see these blue clickable numbers and you see actual in the header, that means I can actually go over and click on it and see exactly what is happening and what transactions that is made up of. So sometimes that can be really helpful if you're trying to answer a question like, did such and such dollar amount post yet? Or why is my spending so big? Oh yeah, I forgot about that expense, or I don't recognize that expense. And you can talk with the finance team to figure out what it was. But that's a really easy way to manage your budget. Now I like this report because it's going to add up the rest of the months of my budget that I haven't encountered yet in my year and give me a total for that. It's then going to compare that to what I actually budgeted and tell me if I'm ahead or behind. So right now, if I stay and I get enough gifts in kind donated goods, according to my budget, I should be 74 ahead of where I said I was going to be at the end of the year. And then down here, for example, I said I was going to spend dollars on program supplies. But you can see that with what I've already spent and what I've budgeted for, if I continue spending exactly like this, I'm going to be $96 over what I've budgeted. So that tells me that somewhere in one of these months coming up, I need to spend at least $96 less so that I can stay within my budget. If I'm not sure, maybe I oversee multiple things in my budget and I'm not sure what's included. If I click on any of these budget dollar amounts here, Martus is going to show me a list of the worksheets that budget is coming from. So you can see this is all coming from my 100 general, 110 youth center. And if I wanted to jump into that budget worksheet, I could by clicking on any of these blue links. Now, if you are on a report, like maybe you're on this report and you're like, this is really helpful, you can set that as your default view simply by clicking on the set default view. And what that means is that whenever you are on the welcome screen and you go to like dashboard financials, you're going to be right into that report that you want to see. So that makes it a lot easier than trying to run around and figure out which of these reports you want, because there's a lot of them in here. All right, another report I want to show you is our income statement report. So this report here is going to show you your actuals through your ending date and your budget for that ending date and compare it, and then show you your year-to-date actuals and budget and the variance there, as well as your annual budget and what's remaining in your annual budget. So you can see this is a little bit more high level than the last report we looked at, depending on what you're trying to see. Now, what's nice about Martus is that you can always change what your rows are grouped by. So if you've ever played with Excel and maybe a pivot table, or you've heard that language thrown around, that's kind of what this is doing. So if I change my rows to my corporation view summary, you'll see here that I now am seeing all of the different areas or corporations where I have dollars. And just like our planner summary, we can click on expand or all row dimensions to get more detail. I'm going to go ahead and click on expand. And so now we can see our corporation and then the accounts under each one. And those are drillable into those transaction reports where you can get even more details about what's making those dollars up. All right, I'm going to show you one more report here and then we'll wrap up our call today. And that is our income statement by dimension in Excel. So this is again really helpful if you're overseeing multiple different departments. Maybe you really need something that you can print, you're going to review it away from your computer, you just are tired of, staring at a screen all day. That's totally an option too. So here we have an output dimension. That's going to control what tabs we have on the bottom of the worksheet that Martus is going to export for us. And we're going to come into our corporation here. And I'm just going to hit load. And Martus is going to give me a document that is going to have the summary of the accounts across all of the dimensions I can see, as well as a tab for each worksheet, each dimension that I have access to. So here we have our summary, that's everything together. Then we have our general, our Colson initiative, and our Eastlake. And you may have caught on that we didn't have a budget for Eastlake, but notice that I have it and I can view it, and that's because this is our Eastlake Corporation, and this is the amount of money that is in our youth department. So even though we don't have a budget, we spent actuals to it. So I am seeing that and able to report on that. So whether there are actuals or budget to an account and set of dimensions that you have access to, you will see one or both or either, depending on what dollars exist. All right. I also want to show you the saved reports. Now, you may not have anything in here. It may look like this, or you can add saved report. And we can click on create new saved reports. And what's nice about that is if you have 2 or 3 reports that you are really using often, you can add them as your saved report, and then you can just click on the ones that you want to view and see. Here's our year-to-date budget comparison. This is an even higher level report than our income statement. The other really nice thing about your report drop-down here, your saved reports, is that on your welcome screen, all of your saved reports are listed right here. So when you first log into Martus, if you have some good saved reports, all you have to do is jump in to that report there. All right. Now, if you are like me and you would like to be able to read through a lot of what we talked about today, we do have all of this out on our knowledge base. So once you're logged into Martus, you can click on support and click on the open support website button. And from here, you're going to click on budgeting and forecasting and then jump into this budgeting basics learning path and click on this link to get started down here. You'll have and be walked through each of our our pages in this learning path, and you can use this little navigation to get to the next one. But this will give you a quick video recapping a lot of what we talked about, as well as define some of the terms and be able to really give you a lot of that data that maybe you want to know a little bit more about. This is a great way to learn. We have all of our worksheet actions, definitions, and line action definitions so that you can utilize our knowledge base to get that information. All of our articles do print in a pretty printer-friendly format as well. So that's a great place to go for help. If you are still stuck, definitely reach out to your finance team, and if they get stuck, they can reach out to us and we can help everybody move forward. So that is what I have for today. I don't see any open questions, but feel free to come off mute and ask any if you do have some. I'll stick around for a while, but I do thank you so much for your time and jumping in. If you will take a moment and fill out that survey at the end and let us know what other sessions like this you would like to see, maybe the timing of them, anything like that that would help us serve you better, we would love to hear it. Otherwise, have a great day, everybody. I hope that you all have a good evening and enjoy your day and your week.
Thanks, Melissa.
You're most welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.